So basically, what I'd like to go through tonight is kind of explain. It's just a quick show of hands, right? Hey, how many people use Wires X on System Fusion? And by that, meaning you have access to sign on to Wires X and log into any of the user roles. How many people have Yaesu System Fusion equipment that they use? Okay. And as I understand it, currently, none of the System Fusion repeaters in the rah-rah system are connected to Wires X. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So the Clinton 146715 machine, I run a Wires X node from my house to that machine. So basically, if you can get into the Clinton repeater, and you have System Fusion, you can connect to that and you can go into different rooms. I'll call them rooms as we speak. There's different terms for them. There's nodes. For people who use hotspots, they use the Yaesu system reflectors. So the way I get in is I use a HRI 200, which is basically a sound card. And I run that through a Yaesu FTM 100, which is a VHF, UHF radio, but it becomes a dumb radio. And by that, I mean it just passes audio to and from the repeater into the sound card, into the internet. So that radio sits here running idle. I can't talk on it. Most of the time, I can't listen on it. It just passes the audio from the repeater to my radio here to the internet. All right, so there's many different ways to get into Wires X. With the newer radios, you can do what they call PDN mode. And if you get the cables for your radio, you can plug those cables right into the sound card on your computer. You can use a hotspot, and there's many of them out there. So I choose the HRI 200 because I host a node, and I have software on my computer that I can look at and see. So the radios I'm going to describe, the first one that I have on my screen is the Yaesu 991A. The Yaesu 991A cannot be used in conjunction with the HRI 200. You have to have hotspot, or as I call it, a dumb radio to hook up to it. So I actually have to have two radios here to connect up to Wires X. So it, in essence, you can get, for example, you could hook, if you had internet access at any of your repeater sites, you could hook an HRI 200 directly to the repeater. But we all know that costs money, additional money that, us hams don't have these days when it comes to club repeaters. So I choose to do it via RF. I've got a small beam on my tower, and I beam that towards Clinton from Janesville here, and that's all that antenna does. So basically, I have a radio sitting here that is dedicated to Wires X. So what I'm going to do is, since you really can't see that screen very well, even if I'm going to try zooming in a little bit more here. That's not going to work. All right. So on the screen on my Yaesu 991A, I have it set in this particular thing, and there's an X button, which is for Wires X. So I'm going to push that. I'm connected to the, I'm on the Clinton repeater, and Wires X only works in digital narrow mode. It will not work in voice wide mode. So I can see on my screen where it shows K9GJN Greg is connected to the Clinton Yaesu Fusion repeater. So what I can do is on the bottom of my screen, if I want to search for a specific room or a node, I can either search direct if I know the node number. I can hit direct and punch those numbers in on my screen. And if that node is accepting outside nodes or calls, it will connect me to that node. Or I can hit the all button. And basically what it does is it sends a signal to the repeater through my radio back into the internet here. And it gives me a list of several nodes. So one of the more popular nodes on WiresX is America Link, Kansas City wide. And right now I see 148 different nodes logged onto that node. So if I were to click on that and connect up to it, we're going to hear conversations from all over the world. So 148 nodes versus how many radios can hear that, how many repeaters, how many people on there. You're talking tens of thousands of people who can hear those conversations all at one time. And in those busy rooms, people tend to forget that you're on various repeaters, and they hotkey. They don't give a 3 or 4 second pause when they unkey before the next guy keys up and answers. It can be kind of daunting. So fortunately, with the software I have with the HRI 200, I can go in there and disconnect it manually. But if I try and do it with my radio, once it's connected, you have to have a pause. And like I said, all these hams forget about the pause. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my list down here. I'm going to go to a group called the Texas Nexus. And I'm going to select. And if you hear the beep, it now shows I'm connected to that group of nodes. And I have the advantage, I can't put my list up here for my HRI 200 for you guys to see. However, what I can do, well, let me take my camera off here. Can you see my computer screen with any way at all? Can you read what's on it? Nobody? Okay. All right. So basically, I'm showing in this room 37 different nodes hooked up to it right now. I don't hear any conversations going on, which isn't unusual. I'm not sure what happened with my camera here. In any case, I'm gonna just set this one off here because you can't see it. So basically, with WiresX, it's voice over internet protocol. It's not ham radio over RF. You're using the internet to talk anywhere in the world. There's many rooms on WiresX. I show about 10,000 different nodes or rooms all over the world that I could click on and talk to. So in any case, I'm currently connected to Texas Nexus, which is just the name of a room. I'm going to disconnect and I'm going to go into, hopefully, a room that is very active, which I'm going to try and do the Kansas City wide net.
And internet. That's where
Okay, so
and Jake, they alternate weeks, but
can you guys hear that audio?
So
yep.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Tonight at 7 o'clock here on Kansas City wide. But
so basically, this room has multiple nets, multiple users.
Take a look at that room and that page about our room, and I can join us on the nets, and I can just sit on. From interlag to with us. Just those call signs out when there's not that going on. And somebody will come.
So I'm going to turn that back down. So basically, you can hear it's typical Fusion audio, digital audio. some people like it, some people don't. It's you got to kind of pick up an ear for it. But I've been on it long enough. I don't seem to mind it. But what is really cool is you can talk to people all over the world with just the push of a button. So for those of you who have older Yaesu Fusion equipment, I'm going to say the first Fusion radios that came out were the FT1Ds, the FT2Ds, the FTM 100s, the FTM 400. There is a website you can go to called the Wires X Bible. And if you search that in your browser, when System Fusion first became a thing that was being used a lot, these guys, there were 7 of them that came up with user manuals how to connect and disconnect and navigate your way around Wires X. Because I don't know if any of you know, when you get your Yaesu radio, they don't explain to you in the manual how to connect to this stuff and use it. At least not very clearly. So what I do is I frequently find myself going to Wires X to find out the Wires X Bible, how to do different things. It by no means digital audio in Yaesu Fusion is just like any other audio, like P25 or digital audio or Motorola or any of the other stuff. It all sounds kind of wonky to me. Some people really like it. Others don't. It just is what it is. When Yaesu first came out with these digital repeaters and stuff, they offered them for a pretty cheap price. So we bought 2 of them. Actually, we bought 3 of them. We have 1 as a spare. And the 146715 repeater in Clinton is the one that I keep hooked up to it. The 443715 repeater in Clinton is not hooked up to Wires X. However, it is a digital repeater, meaning Wires X. So if any of you, I don't know how many people run VHF, UHF, but if you ever want to give that system a try, the tower is up 135 feet. It's got pretty good coverage down into Rockford. I don't know how many people have tried it. But if you ever want to give it a try and you need some coaching or some answers, you can get a hold of me at k9gjn@yahoo.com. That's my email address, and I will attempt to make a contact time with you and explain things. The biggest thing, we didn't upgrade to the updated repeaters was we just didn't see enough use in them. And I know you guys are like us up here in Wisconsin. I don't hear a lot of use on our repeaters up here. We've got 4 of them here in Rock County. I know Rockford's a lot more active than we are up here. But I would really encourage anybody, if they want to try out System Fusion with Wires X, to give it a try. You can't hurt anything. If you can't disconnect from it, don't worry. I check it quite often. I can disconnect it here if nobody's using it. I just don't like to have it connected to a room that's real busy and everybody locally hear all that traffic that doesn't apply to them. It's basically like a linked repeater on All-Star or something that stays connected all the time. We all know how those are. I guess, Yaesu is continuing on with their digital platform. They have many new radios out. Personally, I'm not into paying that kind of money for them. I've got what I've got for equipment, and I don't plan upgrading in the future. But if anybody's interested in trying out Yaesu Fusion on the repeater side, the Clinton VHF is 146.715. And in digital mode, I have no digital ID on it. You don't Don't need to have it. If you're using it on FM analog, it's a 123 PL, but that does not apply to the digital side. The UHF repeater is 443.175. And as I said, that one is not connected to Wires X in any way currently. I might do it this summer, but if I don't really seem to pique an interest, I only really see the need to have one repeater on Wires X.
Hey,
Does
Greg.
have any questions right now? I'm kind of rattling stuff off here. I thought my video was going to be a lot clearer for you guys to see, and I'm going to have to come up with a better camera to show my radios. And I'm really kind of disappointed how that turned out, but it is what it is. So does anybody have any questions about the use of the system fusion on Wires X?
Verna has her hand raised.
Verna, go ahead.
You're muted, Verna.
Okay. Now, this is just kind of a general question, and it's probably, I've been told this before, but is it basically like Echolink?
It is like Echolink, but it's Yaesu's version of Echolink. And it can be used on FM or analog mode. I know there's a lot of guys who cross over the different modes. John Kruk runs a group. It's called the Duo Now Network. And these guys mix all these different forms of audio. They're doing P25. They're doing System Fusion. They're doing D-Star. They're crossing them all over. And basically, yes, it's like Echolink, just connected differently. So I guess that's the best way of putting it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So like I said, I understand that there's not a lot of use of the digital platforms down in your area, and I understand that because when you're using System Fusion, all the people on FM, unless they have tone squat set, all they hear is a noise, and a lot of people do not like that. So the only way around it is to set your radios to tone squelch, and you don't hear that. And that kind of becomes a problem. So if you got somebody who's using the digital side and somebody on the analog side wants to get on there, you can't use them both at the same time. So it's not very attractive in that manner. That's why we just picked the one repeaters down in Clinton to have on to use on digital mode. They are most certainly set up for analog or FM, and I encourage people to use them if they like. Like I said, I'm not sure what the coverage is down in Rockford and Winnebago area. I do know it gets down towards Chicago a little ways, but and about halfway to Milwaukee, and depending on the propagation. So we run our repeaters at 20 watts. I don't have any amplifiers on them. They seem to do just fine. Again, does anybody have any questions on System Fusion that I can answer? Or
I have a question, Greg.
Marv, go ahead. I can't see everybody, so you just kind of come at me one at a time here.
Okay. Are there other equipment besides Yaesu that can get on this? In other words, is this strictly a Yaesu network?
That is correct. So if you have D-Star, you cannot talk. They have different codecs, meaning different digital audio. So if you have, like I said, for example, D-Star or DMR, unless you have a hotspot that crosses over the different from D-Star to Fusion or P25 or DMR, no, you specifically would have to have Yaesu equipment to use System Fusion. Did that answer what you were looking for, Marv?
Yes.
Okay.
Larry's got his hand up. Larry Schubert.
Greg, maybe you can, I don't know, I hate to act stupid, but I hear about hot spots and I have no idea what they are or how they're used or anything. I wonder if you could explain that to us.
Sure. There are many different kinds of hotspots, and what a lot of them are doing now is basically a hotspot is usually a UHF radio that connects to the internet. Okay, so if you can picture, a lot of them are very small. They're Raspberry Pis. They're very small boxes, and you can get a VHF version of them, but I think they're kind of getting away from the VHF versions of hotspots. So basically, with a hotspot, if you had say an FT1D portable, and you wanted to get into System Fusion, you can go to you can set your frequency on the hotspot to say a simplex frequency in the UHF band, or somewhere that it's legal for you to transmit back and forth. And that hotspot becomes your bridge to the internet. Okay.
Okay.
And then you heard me make mention earlier of YSF reflectors, Yaesu System Fusion reflectors. And those are basically the different rooms within the System Fusion. And with that hotspot, you can connect up to that stuff. Now, most of the hotspots now cover all the different modes. They cover D-Star, they cover DMR, they cover System Fusion and P25. There's another newest, latest, greatest digital version out there of voice, but I'm not sure what it's called. So these hotspots range anywhere from $100 to $200, and some of them maybe even more expensive. But all they are is a bridge to the internet that you could use through your little portable radio, or in my case here, just like I've got my separate dumb radio that only transfers audio back and forth, I could very well use that with a hotspot as well. And you could, you're just transmitting your audio in and out of your little hotspot in your shack, which probably, and UHF doesn't go from your home probably more than a mile if you're lucky. So you really wouldn't have a big audience. There are people who do hook up hotspots to their outside antenna. I know Ron and 2RON had a couple of hotspots up for the longest time, and he was doing System Fusion on them. So basically, that's just a node. That's just his radio transmitting out locally what it hears from wires X. He's passing that audio along, just like we do it from the repeater, only from his own radio at his house, which is totally acceptable to do. There are many, there are frequencies set aside for digital conversations. There you go. Joe's got one of them fancy hotspots right there.
All right.
And, you know, like I said, on the top of that, I'm sure it shows where he can connect to, what mode he chooses to use.
This one's primarily DMR.
Yep. I mean, so, and basically, Joe, do you use a portable to connect your hotspots, or what do you use? Okay. Yep.
Tuck that right to the hotspot to the internet.
Right. You know, I won't tell you that one digital mode is better than the other. I think they're all equally, some of them have some unique features. DMR to me, to like a new person in ham, is very complicated because you have to do these code plugs. You have different time slots and codes and color codes, and it can become very complex to a new ham. Where System Fusion, it can be kind of complex, but it's a little more simpler in my eyes. And I'm most certainly not saying Fusion is the only way to go. A lot of guys have several modes. D-Star, for example. D-Star is really cool. If you're mobile traveling throughout the country and you can connect up to a D-Star hotspot, your buddy here in Wisconsin can type in your call sign and find you anywhere in the country if you're connected, which is really cool. And I'll bring up these hotspots too. A lot of guys run these hotspots in their vehicles. I was amazed when System Fusion first came out. There was a lot of truckers who had a hotspot sitting on their dash connected to the internet, and they were on System Fusion driving around the country, talking to their family, friends, wherever they were from. No problem. So it has a lot of unique uses, but the big drawback is it relies on the good old internet. And if the good old internet isn't working, guess what? Your different digital systems can't connect all over the place. You can still use them radio to radio or radio to repeater, but if you cannot connect it to the internet, you're not talking to anybody anywhere but in the range of your repeater or your radio. So that's the downside of it. I thought it was really cool. I'd log on to the Australian net about 7 o'clock at night, and all the people over in Australia were going to work that time of the morning over there. And they're just chatting away, talking, and they love talking to people all over the world. It's pretty cool. But you'll find hams that say, well, that's going over the internet. That's really not ham radio. I get that. Where stuff like this comes in handy is the guy like Jimmy, who lives in an apartment. If he wanted to stretch his wings and was able to connect, he could talk to people all over the world, not just locally, or people who have antenna restrictions and HOAs, stuff like that. But it's a different kind of ham radio. I can't say it's not. It's just another way to connect. So, and once again, I don't push System Fusion over any other digital mode. I think they're all equally good, bad, ugly. A lot of them have some great features. So it is what it is. It hasn't really taken off like I envisioned it would. So, anybody else have any other questions? All right, like I said, I'm a little disappointed in my video part of it here, and I'm gonna maybe work on that with a different camera in the future. I guess I have one other question. How many guys here and gals who work HF use the digital modes like FT8 and FT4, that type of stuff?
I try to.
And once again, that is a very different mode of operation. You're not chatting with people. It's just a computer sound card application, and it's giving, grid squares and signal reports. There are some, I'm told, of the modes that are set up to do keyboard chat, if that's your thing. The thing I like about that is the bandwidth is so narrow. I quite frequently work, Japan, Australia with 25 watts on a regular basis. So it's pretty cool. It's made for low signal. Sometimes I cannot even see a signal on my radio, and I still see print coming across my screen, which is kind of cool. So if you guys are interested in that, maybe sometime I could put on a demonstration with that. With a little bit better camera, and I can put that up on my screen. And once again, it's a different kind of ham radio. It's not talking to people on the mic. And I for the longest time, I was only doing FT8, FT4. I've kind of got back away from that, and I've started going back to sideband so I can make real world contacts and talk with people again.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
Can you explain for some of the newer people, or just all of us in a way, what is the advantage of why one would spend their money for a system fusion radio versus a straight FM radio?
Well, that's a good question, Kurt. And I know you and I have had that conversation. I see no advantage of it at all unless you want to use wires X to get out. So, as I explained earlier, if you can't put antennas up, or if you live in an apartment, that would be an advantage to be able to talk to people all over the world. For us hams here who just use UHF, VHF for repeaters and FM, I'll be honest with you, I don't see a great use of it. You don't get it that much more range out of it. The only difference with system fusion in regard to repeater use or simplex use, you either hear the signal or you don't. But you're right, spending your money on some of these newer radios that cost $500, $600, $700 for a UHF, VHF mobile, to me, it's ridiculous.
All right.
I mean, I bought this equipment when it was fairly cheap, when Fusion first come out, and they were giving this stuff away at lower prices. Now the FTM 100s, which are probably 7, 8 years old, they're still going for $300.
Are they?
Yeah, and these newer ones, the FTM 500s and the 5100s and this and that, they're going for like $700.
Yeah, now they got the 510 out, don't they?
Yes.
All right.
I don't know much about it. I'm not. I'll be honest with you. I'm not keeping up on some of the newer equipment because I'm just going to keep what I have. But yes, I really don't see much of an advantage, Kurt, of spending a big amount of money. If you could find a deal on one of these radios and you wanted to see if you liked it or something like that, I would say yeah, go for it. But I wouldn't spend hundreds of dollars on something like that. To me, it's just there isn't that much value in ham radio.
Well, it certainly isn't as popular as they wanted to project it as.
Yes, I totally agree. I think D-Star they were the first one to come out with all their equipment, and they were practically giving it away. And now it's just it's like Fusion. It's just kind of floating along. It's just like this turd, so to speak.
Yeah.
There most certainly are users of it. I mean, if you look on these node lists and you see, a lot of people like to check into nets. And there's one guy up here in Janesville, Larry, N9UDN. He loves checking into that Kansas City wide net and talking to people all over the country. And he's got a hotspot, but when his hotspot isn't working, he gets on and uses the Clinton repeater. And like I said, it's got its niche. Let's put it that way. It's like the guys who do CW, the guys who do single sideband, the guys who do AM. It's just another niche in ham radio as far as I'm concerned.
Marv, did you have a question for Greg?
Yes, I don't have any digital modes, but I do listen to or watch QRSS and WSPR using a viewer, FSK View. It's rather interesting. QRSS is an extremely weak CW signal, and that's like WSPR. It is the timing between the characters or the elements of the character are stretched way out. You have to have a viewer to even see it. FSK View is one of many viewers on the web for it. I find it very interesting because I've got a buddy down in New Mexico that runs a continuous, very low power, like less than a watt, on QRSS, and I'm able to monitor him on WebSDR from a East Coast station. It's kind of interesting to see what you
Yep.
can do with extremely low power.
Yep, the whisper modes are really cool because it's transmitting at a watt or less, and these guys are
Yes.
looking to see where their signal's being heard. It's really cool. And Joe put had his screen up there of an FT8 or WSJT software, and like I said, it is exactly that. I mean, I've seen. You look at my radio and you can't even see a signal, and I see print coming across my screen, which I find is really cool.
Yep.
So once again, that's another digital mode, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but there's hundreds of thousands of users of it out there. And they're using it to log contacts all over the world.
Oh yeah, I find it very interesting.
Yep. In that low power mode, I mean, I run my radio most of the time at 60 watts when I'm doing digital FT8 or FT4. And I've made contacts all over the world. And I'm just crazy. And what I like about it is you can do the reverse beacon lookup and see where your signal's being heard. It's called PSK Reporter. So if you're transmitting on FT4, FT8, or any of those modes, you can put your call sign in there and see where it's being heard all over the world. I was just fascinated one night on 40 meters. I was just calling CQ, and the research station down at the South Pole was hearing my signal. You won't talk to any of those guys down there, but they have a skimmer running,
Oh, interesting.
Yes, it is. So.
I once saw a presentation of the station down on the South Pole, and it was a slide presentation up here at the Rockford Observatory. Yes, we do have an observatory, and it was very interesting. He says we cannot use movie cameras down there. Nowadays they could use digital, but he says we took a lot of slides back in the day, and it was very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's very cool. Like I said, for most of the guys now are older in ham radio. There's very few young people. The young people will gravitate towards the new technology. I've been a ham since 2008, and I've kind of dabbled my feet in this stuff. I don't like any one thing over another. I still like to pick up the microphone and talk to people. The biggest thing I like about ham radio is I can talk to people in other parts of the world I know I'm never going to be able to visit. So, and for me, that's it. And this digital mode allows that to happen, but it's a little bit different. Anybody else have any questions? Kurt, I appreciate your question on that about the affordability and why would you spend your money on this? And I know we've had that conversation, and I most certainly wouldn't push it on anybody. I know, everybody, budgets are tight these days. Some of this newer equipment to me just doesn't suit the need.
It's one thing when, especially if you've been in the hobby for a while and you think, you're going to get into whether 2 meters of some kind, and you think you're going to spend maybe a couple $100 or $100 on a used radio, and then all of a sudden you start to find out about system fusion or whatever it may be, and then you look at the price and you're talking like $400 to $550 somewhere in there, and go, wow, that's a lot of money. Now, if it was the predominant mode used in your area, that may be a different thing, but it isn't. Still, everyone seems to gravitate toward FM, and you go, man, I just can't justify spending an extra $300.
Yep.
And it's just not used very much.
Right. Yep, I agree. And that's why, like I said, we've just got the 2 repeaters in Clinton, and if anybody has that equipment, feel free to use it. it's there, you know. And if you just want to use it on FM, it's there. I mean, I'm not pushing our repeaters over the, I don't know how many you guys got down there, 3, 4, in the Rockford area, Winnebago County, and there's probably some others. But you know, it is what it is. And I think ham radio's kind of slowed down a lot. But about the time I say that, I met 2 new hams up here in Janesville who just recently got relicensed.
Yeah.
You know, there's new people down there. So there are people coming into the hobby, just not like it was, you know, back in 2008 when I got into it. I know that. So. Well, I appreciate everybody coming in tonight. If I get a better camera here, which I think I'm gonna, I would like to show the radio interface and the software sometime to people if they're still interested. But it, to me, it's one other aspect, and I would never say it's great, the latest, greatest, or say you just gotta go out and get this stuff, because that's not true. So.
You know, Greg, what we might be able to do is once you get that figured out, just even do a special meeting for people that are specifically interested in that to log into. Because I know that we've got several people that couldn't make it tonight that definitely are more interested in that. So yeah, that would be great. And thank you for doing this.
Well, like I said, it didn't turn out quite as nice as I thought it was going to as far as viewing of the radio and the software. I thought my camera would do a little bit better job than it did, but I'm going to work on that and see. Because, I mean, like I said, I know there's people out there who may be interested in it. If I can shed some light on it, or maybe show somebody and they can say, no, that's not for me, that's fine too. I mean, you know, ham radio is a very interesting hobby, and the people in ham radio are very interested people. So there's people from all different walks of life, and I've, you know, met a lot of good folks. So
It's a hobby of many hobbies.
you know, it is. It is.
That's true.
Sure is.
And the fact that, you know, like a lot of people, younger people, you can hook this crap up to computers and do amazing stuff with it. You know, I was probably one of the first guys up here in the Beloit Club, probably one of the only guys doing PSK 31 when it first came out. Yeah,
That's fun.
I was telling people about it, and they're looking at me, shaking their heads, going, "Well, why do you want to do that?" And I explained to them when I made a contact in Reunion Island on 25 watts, they're like, "Well, how did you do that?" You know.
I guess the big question.
Just
could
like
be
when
posed-
Packet came out in the 80s,
Yeah.
late
Right.
70s, early 80s, everybody thought Packet was just, that's not ham radio. But it worked out pretty well, especially talking to Mir.
Yeah. I mean, you know, but once again, it kind of relies on the internet, but yet you can use it outside of the internet too, you know?
Well, eventually it's got to get to a radio somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess the same question would be posed to why people work DX entities and things like that. It's because they're there. That's why.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Right.
Yeah. When I hear that guy in that little known country or little known place in the world out there, or out there in the middle of the ocean somewhere, to me, it's a big thrill, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed when I want to work DX or a DXpedition and they're on FT8. That's disappointing to me.
Well, Verna, with your either one of your radios, with your 991 and especially your ICOM, it is so easy. If you just download the software, your radio will hook right up to it.
We did do that. Didn't we do that last year, Larry? You were interested? Was it FT8? So I hope you get that going.
You're not.
Yeah, I actually I don't think I ever got it going.
Well,
Well, if you're interested, I could come down sometime and get you set up and hooked up with it, and show you how to use it. To me, it's a very neat mode for those de-expeditions or those very weak stations.
mhm.
Yeah, it's not like picking up the mic and talking to them. I'm going to tell you, it's not that big of a thrill. But when your radio signal is heard by those people and they affirm the contact, it's kind of cool.
Sure.
I was able to receive it, but I wasn't able to get it to trigger the transmitter.
Okay.
And I just set it up wrong somehow, Greg. Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, as far as your audio or your video, the other day we had it all working. So I don't know what didn't come in. I
don't know why I couldn't zoom in tonight. It was something kind of strange but I'll work that out. And like I said, it's better to see the interface on the radio when you do this stuff to see what it's actually doing. Like I said, if for you people who have the older System Fusion equipment, that Wires X Bible is a really neat document.
Hey, Greg, I got a question. Do you happen to know with your software, and I'm guessing you're using the you're going to have to help me with this. For
WSGX. Yes.
Yeah. Now, do you know if you can take, and when you make contacts, can that integrate into your general logging software automatically?
It goes into my N3
FJP will.
Yes, it automatically logs right into that at the end of my QSO.
That was going to be my question, because I know you can with FL Digi for sure. I know you can with that. So if you're running some of the electronic software for FT4, FT8, PSK31, a lot of those will integrate into your N3 FJP automatically. So you don't have to, let's say, make contacts and then transfer them over to N3 FJP. They will integrate together.
Right. So with that one there's an option at the end of the QSO to log. It prompts me to say log this QSO, and I hit the button and it goes right into N3 FJP.
Yeah.
And it gives you can set it up for the signal report and all that go into, which I find quite handy. So in my log, I think I've got 5,000 contacts in my log, and probably 70% of those are FT8, FT4.
Okay.
And like I said, as of lately, I've gravitated back to sideband because I like that aspect of it more. So.
Well, Greg, I want to take this opportunity to thank you very much for the presentation tonight. It was very, very good, I thought, and very, very educational, let me tell you.
Well, I know you guys had John Kruk down, and John is the regional sales rep for Yaesu for the United States, and he's got a lot of information. And John's one of these guys who's bridging all of these digital platforms together. He's got the knowledge, and these guys doing this stuff. And, like I said, it's like having Echolink nonstop. I mean, these guys are all, they got their D-Star stuff, and they're talking to Fusion people and DMR people and P25 people, and, and they're even bridging FM in with it, That's above my pay grade. I'll be the first to admit I don't know how they're doing it, but I know they're using hotspots and all that type of stuff. It probably wouldn't take too much, and I'm sure Joe knows kind of how they're doing it, but it's it's pretty cool. I wish, like I said,
a lot of software behind it.
Yeah.
Well, once again, yes, you're right. We did have John down, and he gave a great presentation, but it's always encouraging when we hear somebody local talk about it, so you know what's going on locally, not just
Right.
from the perspective of Yaesu.
Like I said, if you buy a new Yaesu radio, there's nothing in the manual that tells you how to do all this wires X stuff. It's just how to generally connect to it. But as far as navigating around in it, it's hard. I know when I first got into it, I watched a lot of YouTube, but I pulled up that Wires X Bible and I did it step by step, and that really helped me out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you very much, Greg.